All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. Before we get started, we'd like to let you know that the Uncommon Gem podcast is an adult content show, meaning we may go into explicit detail or say some explicit words when talking about today's subjects. We also like to inform you that we're not paid or sponsored by any of the donations or charities in the episode. We simply just are giving it a shout out and hopefully spreading the word on some good causes. Thanks again for tuning in, and let's get on with the show. Yo, again, we are back with episode 15 of the Uncommon Gem podcast. Thank y'all for tuning in. How's everyone's week been going? Oh, wait, you can't answer because you're listening. This is how podcast works. Hey, I'm real excited after that last episode. This is why I like doing this show. You know, we could talk about some action figures. Arin was just so great to be on the show, and he's a really fun, insightful guy, but just see him geek out about action figures was just a fun trip, and you know, who else can't relate? We've all had childhood experiences like that too. So I really enjoyed that episode. But today we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on rocking. I'm real excited and happy about the guest we have on today. She is a singer. She is a songwriter, actor. And now you can catch her as the host of the Songs for the Soul podcast. Just came out recently, so definitely check out the first episode. Folks, please welcome to the show, Alyson Cadena.
Woo! That's my attempt at applause.
They're going wild. Damn.
Wow, thank you, everyone. You're so kind. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on. How have you been? I know we're still like in these weird quarantine-ish times, but things are lightening up. How you been these days?
Oh, I took for granted how much life has changed in quarantine. I just went to the West Coast to visit a friend that like moved out there kind of suddenly. And I realized first of all, fitness is abysmal right now. I was like winded all the time. I don't know how to interact with new people anymore. Like all my social skills have gone down the toilet. So it's quite an experience, but otherwise pretty good. I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home and been able to do some artsy stuff while in quarantine. That's how we got the podcast started, because well, what do I do now? I can't go to a gig.
Let's talk about this podcast a bit because I really like the idea. So you invite artists, and it doesn't have to be just musicians, but you just invite artists in general. So you have comedians and other artists, but you invite them to kind of dive into the songs that they relate deeply to, correct?
Yeah, well, Jose Alicea from Solar Tree, he reached out to me and he wanted to see if we could come up with a podcast, and we threw some ideas around, and this is the one that kind of resonated with us because we're like, we have so many great conversations with so many artists, like just on a one-on-one level, and we're like, how can we bring that to like the general public? Kind of similar to what you do here, like just not just talking about like, oh well, this is what I'm working on, but like this is like who I am as a person, and like here's like my nerdy things, and just getting to know more about the person. So we came up with the idea of we're going to ask them for like their ultimate playlist. So we give the artists a set of prompts that covers everything from like a song for your alter ego to a song for your greatest love. So some of the answers are hilarious and some of them are like really deep and like personal. And we've just been having amazing conversations with these artists, and we've had really cool people on. Like our first episode that's live right now is a close friend of mine named Alex Babbitt, who is absolutely hilarious and such a weirdo. And then to the next episode that's coming out is a singer named Karina Daza that I knew in college. And so like getting to catch up with her has been like super cool because first of all, she knew she was a singer-songwriter in college and I didn't. I was just like fucking around. So being able to come back and be like, look, I figured it out. I finally got on the train, that was cool. But yeah, we got to talk to Tia Hill, who works at Rolling Stone. She's a host at Rolling Stone and previously at Genius. We have Jason Armani Martinez, who's an actor. So it's just like a really wide range of people, and all the music is like really different, eclectic. Sometimes like the very person, like their playlist is like all over the place. Alex Babbitt, he had like gospel, he had like Backstreet Boys, he had everything on there. So it's really fun, and it's new for me because I haven't really hosted much before. So that was cool. And yeah, it's just another way to get out there and have some cool conversations with some cool people.
I love it. Yeah, definitely check it out, folks. Anywhere you're listening to this same podcast, you can check it out. Songs for the Soul podcast. But I love that concept. I mean, who doesn't love music? That's the real question. But everyone,
You know, the funny thing is, everyone loves music. Like everyone, that's why it was so cool to talk to people who do different things and not just musicians. But I personally don't know shit about music. Like, yes, I am a singer-songwriter, but I know like 5 songs at like total. I'm the person that has been replaying the same few songs for like 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So doing this podcast is really funny because I have to tell everyone, like, please send me your list way ahead of time so I can listen to them. You may take for granted that everyone knows the song, and I guarantee you I don't.
That's funny. Yeah, definitely got to get into the mindset of whatever the artist is bringing to, because, you know, like you said, it's so many people can bring so much diverse music. So we had an episode on this very show where someone brought classical and jazz music as their uncommon gems. So I know a lot about jazz, but classical is like a whole different stratosphere for me. So, but it was cool to kind of dive into that world and definitely get into that headspace a bit.
Yeah, I definitely don't know about that neither. If it's not, I got like 3 Selena tracks, like a J-Lo and like a Farina. That's it. If it's not Spanish singer lady, I don't know it.
So, folks, on top of listening to Alyson's podcast, you can also listen to her music because, as she mentioned, she is a singer-songwriter. So you keep mentioning that you had like a kind of weird into music, right? What exactly happened to get you into music?
Yeah, so I've sang all my life. My grandfather was a singer, but like privately at home, not even my own family really knew about it. If you didn't like live in the house, you had no idea because I was just such a wiener that like literally there were times my parents would be like, "Don't you want to sing at like your birthday party, your communion, whatever?" And I would get up there and I'd just start crying and I could not sing. There somewhere exists like video footage of me at my confirmation. So that's like what, like 7th, 8th grade, just crying through Wind Beneath My Wings, like absolutely bawling through wind. And I just remember standing there and looking around at our family and friends who are just looking at me horrified. You know, they're like, they're trying to encourage me, but they're like, this is painful to watch. Like, so yeah, so I just was really shy, never had the confidence to do it until I guess it's like 7 years ago now. My dad bought me a Groupon for vocal lessons. And I'm thinking, like, you know how Groupon is. Yeah. You're going to go, you're going to, you know, bullshit around, take this class for a month. And I'm like, next month I'll try Zumba. The next month I'll do like sword fighting or some shit. And basically what my dad knew and I didn't know is that the person who taught this class his name is Craig Derry, and he's actually a really like accomplished vocal coach to celebrities. Like he coached Mark Anthony, he coached La India, if you know Spanish music, he coached Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Angie Stone, like a lot. I feel like any artist that's been through New York has somehow touched hit Craig Derry's class or his coaching. But yeah, and so what happened was I got there, I thought I was just fooling around. The second he heard me sing, like a month passed where I was just chilling in the back. After a month, I went up and I did like a little solo, and he basically never let me leave. He was just like, no, like he's like, you said that you're doing this as a hobby. No, that's not it. No, you're a singer now and you're not allowed to leave. And there would literally be times where I wouldn't have money to pay for the class, so I like would kind of just disappear. I'm like, oh, I'll go back next month. This man would call me and be like, where the fuck are you? Craig, I don't got money this month. You need to come in here. We'll figure that out later. He's like this like 70-year-old black man. He's like, we'll figure that out later. You got to get in here. I guess it was like kind of all happened at once because after that, through Craig, I was able to get on Broadway. I was able to get on Ecuador Tiene Talento, which is like America's Got Talent, but in Ecuador. I got to the semifinals on that. And all of this was just like me kicking and screaming the whole way because I still hadn't registered like, you're a singer now, ma'am. So it's just in the last like 2 to 3 years that I'm like, oh, okay. No, I actually should probably like put some effort into this because I don't think there's any way out. Like, I think this is just what I'm going to be doing from now on. So I've been writing my own music and like now I love it. And I love all the other artistic things I'm able to do beyond music, you know, the podcast and getting into like acting stuff. So that's been really cool. But yeah, no, I don't want to say I fell into it. I think I was like the universe forced it onto me and was just like, what are you not understanding? Like, you're an artist, ma'am. Like,
I love that journey. I love that journey of like, you know, like you said, you didn't stumble into it. It's just that there was just this moment that brought into your life that just took you on for the ride you didn't know you needed to go on. And Craig is right. You do have a beautiful voice. You've released a couple singles recently, especially over the last year.
Thank you.
You released
Mhm.
Gravity and Red Flags. Definitely check those out on all streaming services too. And yeah, support Alyson. She's got a great voice. She's definitely a great singer too.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm like finally like picking up steam. It used to be I drop a song a year, and now I'm like, I got 2 already. I'm ahead of schedule.
There we go. Yeah.
Thriving in 2021.
All right, folks. So as always, we make time to shout out a charity, a service, or a donation that you can look for and start researching a bit more. Alyson was so gracious enough to bring one on for the show today. Alyson, do you mind telling the people what we're going to be talking about today?
Yep, we are going to be talking about the Henry Street settlement. So Henry Street, it's a nonprofit in the Lower East Side that provides a whole bunch of different social services. It's a really big organization. And so I became familiar with them through their Abrams Art Center, which is a theater, and they also have like a lot of different arts classes, from acting to musical theater to singing to instruments, dance, everything. And so I, as a kid, thought I wanted to be an actor. My mom found classes through the Abrams Art Center. And so I was able to get training from them, but then also that introduced me to the other social services that they had, where they have job readiness training for teens. They have summer youth employment programs. If I'm not mistaken, they have like housing programs through the Lower East Side. They have senior services. They have all kinds of different services that they offer. And I just think I've benefited so much from them. Going to college and stuff like that, my first 2 jobs, everything, the doors open from my time at Henry Street, because again, the work readiness program led me into the summer youth employment, which from then they were able to recommend me for like another city program that got me an internship at Ernst & Young at like when I was still in high school. And so it's just been super amazing to me. And so whenever I get a chance, I like to shout them out and support them in any way that I can. So.
Yeah, it's an amazing cause. And I like that you mentioned, that it goes so far to even assist senior citizens, that it really is an all ages kind of effort. And they're really making sure that people are just set up. I think it's important for like, especially the kids, how they're introducing arts at that age, because maybe a lot of kids don't have access to go to such art schools or indulge in such art activities. So for them to be like, hey, here are all these things you can get into at that early of an age, and also continue to stick with those kids throughout their life, I think that's real important too.
Right. I mean, for me, the reason I went so far, because I grew up in Queens, the reason we went so far is because it was just like the cheapest place to get any kind of that training. Like acting training and arts training for kids is really expensive. So this was like the most accessible thing that we had. And like I said, it just opened so many doors, because I took their acting classes. And from there, I got recruited to the summer youth employment program, where they literally paid me to be part of an acting group. And we like wrote and produced our own staged show. Like it was kind of like an ensemble show, and we would perform it throughout New York and other community centers and things like that. So, I mean, to be like, I think it was like 15 at the time, and be getting like literally paid to be an actor was amazing. And a lot of the people in the program, I remember being like, wow, these people are so freaking talented. Like, and they're like regular, black and brown kids like me. And they're like, there were just amazing, amazing talent through there. And even now, sometimes I'll see, now that I'm trying to get back into acting at my big old age, I see a lot of people that I would study with back then. They actually went on to become like professional actors.
Oh, amazing.
So I'll see them on like posters or like plays and things. I'm like, oh my God, that's that guy. It was really cool.
I think you mentioned it too, that, they also make sure to take care of your mental health as like a normal thing too, because a lot of the episodes of this show, we've talked about mental health and how important it is, but we also talk about how not so accessible it is for many people. So the fact that these people are just offering it right at the gate for a lot of less privileged folks, I think it's a real important cause too.
Yeah, I mean, I only am familiar with certain services because those are the ones that I did, but I just know from like, if you look up their website, they do so many different things for the community. And like you said, like from mental health to like elderly to youth, anything you could possibly think of, they could probably help you with. And so I love that organization, support everything that they do.
100%. And as always, folks, they definitely offer volunteer services. They have food pantries, so you can also look into that. Get involved with these people, I think that's a great way to network. I think it's a great way to learn your community. And yeah, just take that time to learn from these kind of services. You can check that out at henrystreet.org. That is Henrystreet.org. Oh, what's this? Hey, Alyson, I just got a text on my T-Mobile Sidekick too. it appears that we now need to get on the buses to talk about your uncommon gem. Do you mind telling the good people what you decided your uncommon gem for today's episode is?
That intro is amazing. Yes, I love it. And real ones will know what my uncommon gem is based on that intro. My uncommon gem. I am the biggest nerd for many years of a little known show called The Challenge. Previously known as the Real World Road Rules Challenge. Yes. Sorry. I'm just so excited right now. It's so rare that I can geek out about this show. Literally, I have like 2 people in my life that watch this show. And anytime I watch when there's a new season or something, I text those specific 2 people because no one else in the world knows what the hell I'm talking about.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, growing up, my cousins would always watch it. I never was really one for those real world shows or all of that, but I would kind of pick it up here and there, and like, especially when it came to the challenge, because they're doing some of the wildest, intense Survivor kind of style challenges in the middle of this show, and I'm like, well, how can you say no to this? But that's definitely the kind of the drive of the show. I mean, I've always loved game shows, and to add into this intense kind of Fear Factor-esque MTV reality TV show universe is pretty great.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when I say Real World Road Rules Challenge, or like I kind of explain what it is, they'll remember it. Someone played it in the background back in the day in their life, but there's just no one actually like watches the show except like the handful of us that watch the show. But yeah, and so I love like reality TV. I love trashy reality TV is my thing. Like all the MTV shows, like the Teen Moms, like that's me. But I don't usually actually really like Survivor or any of those like competition shows. But this show in particular, I started watching when I was young because like I had a cousin who was watching it one time and I'm like, oh, this is cool. It started from watching The Challenge to then I would watch like Road Rules. I tried Real World. Real World actually wasn't really my thing because there was too much sex and I was like a dum-dum at that time. Like I blossomed really late that I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about half the time. Yeah, so I've been just watching The Challenge for years, since I was young, and it's just what I like about this show is that the whole premise was supposedly like people that used to be on Real World or people that used to be on Road Rules, and they'd take a handful of them and they'd go and they'd do these like physical challenges. It's like a competition style, Survivor style, like you said. And then sometimes it's a team, sometimes it's a pair, but they're just competing to win whatever, $100,000, whatever it may be. What I like about it is that it's the same characters you're seeing over and over. Like it's the same people going from season to season, so you already know like these 2 have beef, these 2 were exes, and now it's even more messy because now in the in-between seasons you got like the Twitter beef, like you're like more in their day-to-day lives, or you're like, they used to be best friends but now they're not showing up anymore. I bet next season they're going to talk about why they're not cool anymore. So, but that's what I liked about it. It's like you're kind of seeing these people's lives like come back, and then you have the fun of the game,
right? Because I do have to be honest, especially watching the season I did, Inferno 2, they are some charismatic characters. Like you can't deny, are they the greatest human beings? That's a different story. But you can't sit here and deny that you're not enjoying watching these people interact with one another. I'm not big into wrestling, but I know who The Miz is. But seeing him like in this young state, kind of interacting with the people that he's interacting with, I'm like, you know what? He's a charmful guy. I can't deny that. It's fun watching him on screen. But yeah, it's just a bunch of those kind of people, a bunch of 20-somethings. A lot of them do look in their 30s. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of them, because they've come from the other shows, like there's this one, I don't remember he was in the Inferno too, but this one person, Mark Long, that he's been there so long, he was on the first Road Rules. Like homie's a little older than the rest of the cast. He was the first Road Rules,
One thing that you mentioned was that how it's the same characters kind of coming in certain seasons and whatnot. So when you had told me this is what you wanted your uncommon gem to be, I watched that one, and then you had mentioned to also watch the current season, at least the first episode. What I wish I had known was that this man CT is still in the game. I don't understand. I'm like, I watched this man in 2005 and he is still here in 2020 competing. What?
Okay. I will tell you CT, and I don't know if she was in Inferno, but there's one person named Anissa. They're the only ones that are still doing it. Oh, I'm sorry. And then there's one person, Darrell. I don't know if he was on that season. Those are like the only three like OGs that are still doing the current new seasons. But yeah, some of them you look at you like guy, I think it's time for you to call it quits.
It's like a legit professional sports career for a reality television show. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. I don't think people realize like how many of our current stars now from like just other things came from MTV. So when I sent you what season to watch, I realized that in that season I sent you, they have Karamo Brown from Queer Eye. They have Mike the Miz from WWE. They had someone else, but
Jamie Chung. She's like
Jamie Chung, yeah, the actress from The Hangover. She was there. There's one guy that he's like one of the most winningest challengers ever, Johnny Bananas, that now he works in NBC First Look, and he's got like this other show that he's doing with NBC. But a lot of people that like you'll know in real life, they started in MTV. Even, you know, I was catching up on Real World, like the old seasons of Real World, because I got Paramount Plus subscription, and Tammy Roman from The Housewives started in a Real World season. I didn't even know that. So yeah, like a lot of people got their start, I guess, because that's what was available at the time, you know, when reality TV was first coming out. But yeah, and then there's also, you know, people that to us is like, for us nerds that watch the challenge, these are our challenge legends, like, you know, OGs. So not obviously The Miz did a lot of episodes. Karamo, he disappeared after a while, but like The Miz was in a lot of seasons. He won a lot. CT, he was in, and he used to be crazy party boy, hooked up with all the girls, got in fights. He would get kicked off the season because he hit somebody.
I should mention, without even hearing him talk, I'm like, that person has to be from Boston or somewhere within that region. Like, he has to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, to compare, that's what he was like. He was known for being like a ticking time bomb before, of like, sometimes people would mess with him just on a game move because he was like so good at everything. They're like, if we get CT pissed off, he'll hit somebody and get kicked off the show. You know, like that was the strategy. And now dude got a whole family. He disappeared for a little bit because he had like personal stuff going on. And when he came back, he had like full dad bod. Nobody was taking him seriously because they're like, CT, you're like chubby and old already. Like, and now, if you see the reunion for this season that just ended, dude looks like brand new. Like, we saw him get old and then get fit again for the show because he could keep going. Yeah, so you just, I don't know, it's just cool to like follow their lives. CT is so famous to us like MTV nerds. They literally made a special about his wedding.
That's pretty nuts.
They made a whole like a whole like 3-part special about CT's getting married.
I even know who CT is from the Real World, and I've never watched that show. Like, I legitimately know who that person is before even going into this Uncommon Gem entirely. Yeah, MTV definitely sprouted a lot of careers. Like, and definitely it was the reality TV kick that definitely offered room for a lot of, you know, inspiring actors and whatnot to kind of finally get their chance to be on TV. What I liked about this, like, kind of style of the show is it adds, like, all the aspects of, you know, like you said, like, in the Real World, it was just a little bit too much sex. This one is, like, you know, the kind of the shadiness of, like, people talking behind each other's backs, like, stuff like that. And kind of trying to break the rules of the game, which like makes people hella pissed. Yeah, it's very much as a children's game show with adults. Like, it's sometimes. Yeah,
it's like the combo is what you love. Is that like there is the like they're drunk, they're partying, they're hooking up. They have the drama of like personal life drama of like, that's my ex, or the last challenge he voted me off, so you know I don't fuck with him because he's a snake. But then it's also like, hey, we're gonna like jump off of a bus into a pile of whatever, and you know, like like funny like carnival games. But I don't know. The reason I asked you to watch an episode of the new one too is because it's changed so much over the years, and I'm kind of like sad about that because to me, a big part of it was that fun aspect of like, you know, they don't have phones, they don't have anything to do, they don't have TVs. So they're playing carnival games and then they would go home and do like a fashion show because they're just bored. And they're just like, we're going to streak the house, we're going to do a fashion show. we're gonna dress the boys up as girls, or you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Nowadays,
and
like it literally looks like a Mission Impossible movie. Like it's so
yeah.
serious. They have like, legit athletes like Lolo Jones, the Olympic athlete, is literally in this season.
Exactly. So I'm like, I wish they would bring that back. Because even people who have done the show, you know, because I'm an ultra nerd and I follow their Patreons and shit, they've said that like all the fun is kind of gone and it's like all full strategy all the time. That they're like living in the house, you're like paranoid that the person that sleeps in your room is like plotting against you. And it's just like paranoia 24/7. All they ever do, they're always in the gym. The whole time that they're in the house, like no one has fun. They just constantly gym. And then they'll like judge the person. They're like, oh, well, you know, I haven't seen Nani go to the gym not once this season, so I don't want to be her partner. It's lost a little bit of that fun
Right.
because now it's like too intense. But the challenges themselves are cooler. Back in the day, I don't know if it was in the season that I showed you, but like the first challenge was doing a workout with a like military man. And I'm like, that's just exercise. Is that a fucking challenge? It's exercise. So now it's like there's a moving truck and you're going to be hanging off of the side of it. You have to grab these, like jump off the truck, grab these flags. Whoever grabs the most flags wins, but you can't drop the flag and you can't do this and you can't do that. So it's like really, in like the challenges themselves are really cool now, but like I wish they would have a little goddamn fun.
Right.
Like,
That's definitely the biggest contrast. I mean, like even like where they are, because the season we watched was like in Mexico, and now this current season, I don't even know where it is. Like just on this one rock in the middle of the ocean where it's just constantly storming. But I do have to admit that even the editing, like I actually kind of laughed at a lot of the editing because you could tell they kind of had fun with adding certain like swipe edits, stuff like that, because it was 2005, so you know the graphics over there were a bit different. But this time around, it's kind of more serious, like slow-mo shots, and we're gonna get really into the dynamics of this camera angle or whatever for this show.
Yeah. It's changed a lot, but you know what's, they actually came out with, they're doing a new season now. It's still airing. We're in the finals right now. It's on Paramount Plus only. It is all the OGs from like back in the day, and it's just like an all-star season. So it's really cool. That guy Mark Long, he's like 50 years old, and that show is like everything I've been wanting the new seasons to be, because they kept the fun and shit of the old ones, because obviously like it's kind of a reunion of all these people, right? That we haven't seen in like 10 years, 15 years. So it's like partially a reunion. So there is a lot of fun to it, but they're actually doing really hard challenges like the ones that they're doing now. But they're like 50 years old. So it's like the best of everything. Like the first episode, they had to do this like deep sea dive to grab a box that's like on a chain, and you got to unchain it, bring it back to the surface, swim it back. And like everybody died because like, you know, not for nothing, none of them are in shape.
Right.
They have like kids and families and jobs, and we haven't seen them in forever. And they all died on the challenge. And basically every challenge after that was kind of more of the same, of people just dying out. But it's fun, you know. I don't know, they brought back the fun. That one is like the best, but nobody wants to sign up for Paramount Plus except me. I share my login with like 5 people. Like,
you know, shout out to those friends, honestly. Shout out to the friends that share their streaming services. The
ones that pay for it.
A thing I kind of really liked about the show is how they also divide up the sexes. So it's almost always even with men and female cast members from like whatever the shows may be, which really like also adds like a fun element to it, because I think they also, each episode's like kind of different as to who they choose to eliminate. So like there'll be one episode where like, all right, only guys are set up for elimination while girls get to hang out this week. The team dynamics change, because in the season I watched, it was like a lot of the good guys, quote unquote, is what they call the team. Their team pretty much got annihilated the entire season, so it came down to like just 4 of them. Whereas the badasses had like 8 people, and it was like half and half still, like half girls, half dudes. So it was weird, or not weird. It was very interesting. I mean, to see that dynamic, especially for this show, how like it also changes like the course of the show too in that way.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? So they used to do a lot more team stuff, and unfortunately, with the teams, women got kicked out a lot. when they didn't kind of control the numbers of male to female, it would usually be like, oh, well, this is a girls' week, so we got to throw the mission because we got to kill some dead weight on our team, you know, because we don't want to go to the final with Katie, you know? So the newer seasons, they don't really do teams as much. They do just like pairs at most, but usually more like individual stuff. But what I always thought was cool is that there were some women on this show, they're keeping up with the men. You know, I think most people would think, okay, the men are like faster, stronger, but there are women back then and in the current seasons that kick the men's ass. It was not this free agent season that just passed that you saw. The one before, there was an individual winner and it was a woman. And she came in first. It was like her like second season. Second place was that guy Johnny Bananas, who's won like 1,700 times and has been doing this forever. And this was like his, you know, this is like he trains for this. This is like his job. And she beat him. So it's just, it's cool, I think. And I'm, as much as I love the teen dynamic, because I don't know, it's cool when they like talk strategy about like, you know, who are we going to get out or how to, you know, the team dynamic is cool. But the women got like herbed out all the time. So I like that now there's a little more control. So like we'll get to the end and there will actually be women in the show.
I also like that more often than not, especially in the season that I watch, is the women coming up with the really smart like tricking plans, which are like always worked out too. Like I think there was one lady that got so mad because they announced like who they wanted to put on the chopping block. They're like, all right, if they say this person, we'll say this person. But if they say this person, we'll say this person. And like this one woman like flew off her lid. She was like, "You can do that? Is that cheating? Like I didn't know that's cheating." it was. But I was also like, you know what? That's a smart play. That's actually a good move, and it's not cheating. Like Dave Mirra was like, "It's cool. We're gonna keep on rocking."
Yeah, no, for sure. The women are definitely a lot more strategic. There was this one in recent seasons. This girl, Killa Cam. Her name is Cam, but she's Killa Cam because she's just like. She's one of the best in like the newer seasons. She hasn't won yet, but it's never her fault. It's like she always just gets the shit end of the stick from production. And so she came up with a whole plan. She tricked everyone into voting a certain way so that their votes would all cancel out into like a tie, like a 4-way tie or some shit. And then her team made the actual decision.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, literally, it was like the most mind-blowing, like, how the hell did she pull that off? So on this free agent season, her and her boyfriend were both on it. And she was basically like masterminding most of the things that happened. Like most of the people who went into the eliminations, she masterminded most of the season and made it to the final for that reason.
Wow.
So the women on there are cunning. The men is usually just like, nah, it can't be me. Right. It's gotta be Kyle going in this week. What if we all vote for Kyle?
Oh, Kyle's my dog. He was with me on that one season. I can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of the arguments. Yeah, the way the arguments just spike up out of nowhere is also one of my favorite things that I witnessed while watching the show. Just the silly little moments just tick people off.
But you know what I think it is? And Killa Cam said this on her Patreon, that she's like, well, there's like really nothing to do like in this show. And you also kind of just need a reason to vote for certain people. You don't want to keep pissing people off. Like, if I vote you, now you're going to vote me. So it's like, you kind of have to come up with like stupid reasons to be mad at someone. So they'll be like, oh, well, you know, last season he could have voted for Jen, but he voted for me. So this season I'm getting him out first. So it's like all the drama is like, it's petty, it's stupid, but you got to need it for the game because it's funny.
It definitely adds a lot to the story, honestly, especially like when they start competing with each other too. That's when it gets real interesting. So it's a show about games. I have to know, what are some of your favorite games you've seen played on the show?
I love the physical competitions because like eliminations to me is the thing. That's really where it's at. The challenges themselves are cool. I like when they do trivia challenges because you realize that you watch it and you're like, how do you not know the capital of the US? But they're like hanging off of a fucking cliff. Really? Are you going to remember anything when you're hanging off of a cliff? No. I like the eliminations and I like the physical ones because there are times when like the underdog, there's this one, I don't know if he was in Inferno, but there's this one person, Derek, right? That he's this little guy, but he's scrappy as a motherfucker. So he's known that like you could put him up against the biggest dude and he will probably win. I don't know. He's strong, he's smart, he's just like scrappy as hell. And so he's done incredible against guys that are much bigger than him, much stronger than him. And so I love watching stuff like that. You know, sometimes there's this one guy, Jordan, and I hate him. He's not on the show anymore, thank God. I can't stand him. He actually has a disability. He only has one hand.
Oh wow.
And so in his other hand, he's just like missing fingers and stuff. He beat somebody in like an elimination where you had to hammer something with one hand. And the other dude, first of all, was like 17 feet tall, right? He's like huge and like brolic. He looks like a Greek god. And so Jordan is a lot shorter. He's got one freaking hand. And he just outsmarted the guy because he's like, oh, well, you got to use the momentum of the hammer like this to get the most force out of it. And he beat him. And then in another case, he won a tug of war elimination against, again, another guy that was really big. And with one hand, he beat him because he's like, oh, I can tell when he's going to make a really big pull because he'll like do this with his hands or something.
Wow.
So I'm just waiting for when he's gearing up to do a big pull. And I'll just pull him first because he's like not thinking straight. He's about to do something. So, and that's how he won. He knocked him off it was like a tug of war to like knock somebody off of a box. And he kept knocking him off because he's like, oh, I could just tell it when he's about to do something, he does this. And even in the physical ones, there is a lot of strategy involved. So that's super cool.
I agree. There was like one that I liked where they're like pretty much on monkey bars, and like the idea is you have to knock the other person off. So of course, like they're just trying to kick each other off, and then eventually this guy's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna grab him with my legs and like pull him down my weight." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you know what? Honestly, I never would have thought of that, but that's actually a good idea."
Like sometimes I have like janky games that they have to do for elimination.
Those are my favorite though.
And yeah, I don't love them, but I like when it's something like you have to stack these blocks to a certain height, right? And they don't realize until way later, like the only way to reach that height, like you don't have enough blocks to just straight up stack them. You had to like turn them a certain way, stack them a certain way is the only way you can actually get to the height. Things like that I like when it's like, oh shit, like let me think harder about this. Like in the All-Star season that they just showed, they had to make a ladder with a chain. And for whatever reason, like I guess because of the way the wall where they were building this ladder was set up, they thought they had to just keep crisscrossing like a shoelace. And this one guy, he won because he was just like, why would I do that? I'm going to go across, up, across, up, across. Like he just had like a good strategy and no one else saw it. So I like stuff like that where it's like,
yeah,
there was like some cheat code that you had to figure out to make this seemingly simple game actually function. Because they didn't tell you that like it seems simple, but there's like some twist to it. Like,
I'm always a big fan of the games where like the set design comes into play too. There's like one with like miniaturized motorcycles where there's like two paths, like literally one is just a straight line, another one is just like literal hella turns in this small little narrow path. But I like those kind of set design ones, especially like, oh, we gotta talk about how like crazy the set designs for this thing is, because like for the elimination, sometimes like they're in cages with literal fire around the cages and like it looks like some shit out of a Lord of the Rings movie, but it's real world contestants. It's just truly some crazy set design stuff.
Yeah, they do. Whatever the theme is, they like really do it to death. Like even this new season, it's like everything was like spy themed because it's double agents. Anytime there was a puzzle and you had to figure out like a clue or a word or something, it's like, oh, the word is infiltrate. Like, you know, like that, like spy words or whatever. So they stay very on brand to whatever the theme is.
I liked MTV when it was just the music, you know, and obviously it changed when reality television came back. But the one thing I do have to give the reality TV shows is that they still at least like make their time to play songs during the show. So like the new modern season, they actually play some pretty modern music, some people you might actually know. But in the 2005 season, they were playing like some of the craziest, like wildest grunge music ever. And then next thing you know, you'd be hearing Bare Naked Ladies just like that very next song. Just like, okay, this is some choices, but okay.
Yeah. You know what's funny? There are seasons. So most of the old seasons now are on Paramount Plus. And there's a couple seasons in the middle that are missing for the challenge, for the real world. And I was like, what the hell? Like, because I'm a nerd. I want to see every single one. Like when Paramount Plus came out and they put all the seasons on there, I kid you not, for like, I want to say like 2 to 3 weeks, I just watched all day in the background at work, every single season of the challenge that is on the thing. And now I'm like, but where is number 5? Where is like there's like a couple that are missing, and some of them that I remember, I'm like, that was a good ass season. Where is it? It turns out they had problems with the music, with licensing the music. And I was so upset. I was like, well, put some other shit in the back. You know what I mean? You guys can't edit that.
GarageBand.
I'll give you some songs. Like, I think because MTV was so music based, like the music was cool. You know, yeah, like you said, some of it you'll recognize, and some of it was not. Some of it was like new stuff, and it was just cool music that MTV has had its moments. You know, like they forgot what they were good at. You're good at music, and you're good at reality TV, and now all we get is ridiculousness.
Oh, it's insane! How is that show still going on? That doesn't make sense.
You know what? I used to work at a company that did something similar. It was like break.com. I don't know if you're familiar with the website that they have like funny. Yeah, they had like funny videos. So the only way I can explain it is that there's a process to licensing these videos and like getting the rights to like either owning these videos, like you either buy it from the creator or like you have to like lease it. And I'm like, I wonder if MTV is just trying to get like their money's worth for licensing these videos, that's all they fucking play all day long. But I also feel like then just stop licensing all these videos. If you have to play it 100 times a day to make it worthwhile, maybe
that's so crazy.
Do something different.
And what's crazy to me is the fact that show's been on for years now. Like it's almost been 10 years that show's been on. I'm like, how is that possible?
I have so much anger towards that show because they always play it right after the challenge. And so I'm like, no, turn the TV off.
So I wanted to ask, because obviously fights happen on the show, beefs happen on the show. Are there certain beefs or fights from certain seasons that stick out to you?
So there's just one, it's not like a specific beef, but there's certain characters, they're just there to cause drama. CT was one of them because you knew he was going to fight somebody. And then, so there was this one person, Beth, that she is from the, I think, 2nd season of Real World. So she was older than most of the other contestants. But Beth was like the worst. Like every season she was on, everyone is like, Beth is the most annoying human being on planet Earth. She sucks at the challenges. She's like 100 years old. Like, why is she still playing? Nobody likes her. One season, a girl got kicked off because she literally just tried to punch her. Like right after the challenge, she was just like, shut the fuck up, Beth, and tried to punch her. And so it was, I love any Beth beef because she's just, it was always like, come on, Beth, like what the fuck? Like, she was just like the most annoying. Like if you told her something, she'd run and tell the other person like, oh, you know, Jody says that she slept with Mark when you guys worked together. And then people would get really mad, but then they'd be like, why are you telling things to Beth? You know she's going to go tell other people. Like, you know she's going to stir the pot. But it's funny because she came back now for this All-Star seasons. I don't know what the hell happened. Everybody loved her this season. They're like, Beth has really changed. Beth was the best. We love her. She's like the challenge mom. And we're like, what? I was literally watching like, are we talking about the same Beth?
What?
Yeah, like she was just like the worst. And then you'd be like, why do you guys keep hiring her? Because like she's not even good at this show. Nobody likes her. She's out in a couple of episodes. Sometimes she just quit. Like if it was her time to go into elimination, she's like, well, nobody likes me here, so I'm just gonna go. And we're like,
not even giving the audience what they want. They want to see. They want to see her in elimination get hit in the face by a water noodle or something that they're doing in
elimination. Exactly. Like, come on. Like, we want you to lose because we need to see. It's like catharsis for us to see someone send you home.
Right.
You killed it when you just said, "I'm just gonna leave."
One of my favorite beef moments that I at least witnessed while watching it is like when someone on the team is just like, "Well, my team hates me, so I'm just gonna make sure they suck and lose." Because like there's like a lot of times where you could win a game and you get like a get out of jail free card essentially. So they'll try to like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna kill this one fucking game to make sure that person sucks, loses. Yeah. I don't care if they're on my team.
In like the later seasons, well, like somewhere in the middle of the seasons, people was like ODing on that whole like sabotage my own team thing though. Like it was getting to the point that like you could tell who was sabotaging because they just like, oh no, I fell. We're like, bro, you're a rock climber and you fell off that monkey bar. Get the hell out of here. Or they like swim really slow. I can't make it. Bro, you're a professional swimmer. You were on the swim team in high school. Like, shut the fuck up.
I'm curious. So if, let's say, someone were to knock on your door, NTV representatives were to knock on your door and be like, all right, we want you to assemble a crew of whoever you want to go to do your own version of the challenge. Would you do it?
Mhm.
Where would it be? What would the theme be?
First of all, I would absolutely do it. Let me tell you, my boss, I was at one day at work. I don't know how we got on the topic. I was talking about how I was so obsessed with the show. And my boss, like, she was looking at me because I was like, that was my lost calling. I was like, as far as I'm concerned, my lost calling was to be on Real World just so I can get on the challenge because that's the only way I would have gotten on. My boss was like, but are you like scared of heights? And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm scared of heights. I can't swim. I can't ride a bike. I'm like not that strong. Like I would have been terrible. Don't get me wrong. I would have been the absolute worst on the show. But I still wanted. I can't run. Like I got asthma. But yeah, first of all, I still want to be on the show. I'm just gonna be the shitty one on the show that season. Duh. And if I had to assemble my favorite people to go, I would take Tina. There was this girl, Tina, that was on there for a while, that mediocre player, but lots of fun and like a hothead. So she'd get in fights every time. That's the one that tried to punch Beth. I would take Derek because he's actually good at it. I would take, you need some of the funny ones because otherwise it's like, again, especially now that they don't have any fucking fun, like they don't have any joy in the show. You need to have the funny ones for the commentary. So there's a guy named Leroy and a guy named Devin. They were both on this last season, that double agents. I'd have them, this girl, Devin Simone, that now she actually hosts like the after shows. And so she's just really fun. Again, terrible at everything, but hilarious. I'd have the three of them just for commentary reasons. You have to have some bad people so people get pissed off. So I would take this guy, Big Easy, because he was just heavy set. And so he'd like die in a lot of challenges. I would take Big Easy. You have to have good ones. So I would take Darrell and The Miz. Oh my God, I have all like men. I need some girl. I'll have Killer Cam as my good girl. Location, it's going to be tropical because I liked when they did the tropical stuff because they had like underwater or they could, there was like more options. Right. Now they do it in like the same freaking spot. It'll be like somewhere in Europe and it's like they go to the same freaking set and we're like, we just moved this stuff around. No, we're going to do it in a tropical place, but the final is going to be in a mountain because those are always the best finals when they have to climb a mountain, do a puzzle, climb another mountain. Like,
oh wow, yeah.
It's like 2 days long. Everyone's dying. Like CT himself, he got to a final and just completely gassed out. It was exes. The season was exes. So he was paired up with his ex-girlfriend who was like this skinny little thing. And they had to climb a whole freaking mountain. And she was the first one there. But she's like, come on, CT, you can do it. And he's like, I can't. He's like dying on the side of a mountain. And then everybody passed him. So those, I feel like those are the good equalizers when it's like, no matter how fit you are, sometimes you can't climb a damn mountain. Right. And there's a lot of like, there's a lot of guys who got karma on the side of a mountain because they were shitty partners. There was a guy, Zach, there was a guy, Wes, that they were like just terrible to their partners because they thought, oh, I'm the best. She's lucky to have me. Then the final, they had to climb something. I got a cramp in my leg. And that's it. They died. That's it. Their partner had to carry them up or they had to quit or, So that's like the great equalizer to me. So it has to be final no matter what on some kind of mountain or like just uphill.
I like all of it, especially the tropical location. It has to be somewhere nice because, you got to think about the after parties, after elimination parties. You want to go somewhere nice and party.
And I liked when they would go out to like real clubs and bars and stuff because they didn't get into like fights with like locals the way they did in like Real World. But I don't know, it was just different. Now they have like a fake bar that they always hang out at. And so, I mean, part of it is now because of the pandemic, but like even before that, they would just go to the same fake studio bar and they would just hang out amongst themselves and talk about strategy the whole time. I'm like, how can you be in the bar and talking about, so who are you going to vote into elimination tomorrow? Who are you thinking? Like, can you guys dance or something? Like, I think if there was other people in the bar, you'd be a little less game talk.
Yeah, in the 2005 one, when they went to the bar, there was no talking, quite literally only grinding on each other and dancing.
Exactly. Like, that's the fun of it. I'm like, I don't know why do you want to be drunk and talk game? Don't you want to talk about like literally anything else?
So my final thing that I want to talk about though is like the testimonials. So like the little like clip interviews that they play. Yeah, the confessionals. Yeah, I'm just a sucker for those in general, but for these shows in particular, they choose some of the wildest clips of these people just explaining a situation. Like, there's one guy, Abram, I believe his name is, in the Inferno season, and anytime he's in a confessional, I'm literally dying laughing because of just how he talks. Like, just crazy stuff.
Which is why, you know, when you ask me who I want to have on, I'm like, you always have to have, there's certain people you have just for confessionals. Because there are people who are like, I don't know if Landon was on the season you watched. Amazing competitor. Boring as all hell. Just so, you know, there's certain people that you have them there because you want to see them do amazing. You know, the Landons, there's Alton. Ruthie was a pretty good competitor for the girls. Rachel. So they're there. They're going to excel. They're actually going to win it.
Right.
They're going to win each individual challenge. You don't want to see them in eliminations. They're usually like the captain of their team. But that's freaking boring. So then you need the funny people to be like, oh yeah, when they fell off that thing, that was hilarious. They hit the water like a, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, you always need the funny people. And I think that's like, I'm telling you, that's like the last joy left in these new seasons. Right. It's just when and then I always get pissed because the funny people are never really the best. Abram was really good on the show, but like most of like the funny or interesting confessional people they're there for that, but they're not actually very fit. They're not actually really good at anything. And then they get kicked off by like episode 5 and you're like, well, what the hell are we supposed to do the rest of this season? Like, what am I supposed to, am I supposed to just watch the sport? That's not what I'm here for. Like,
awesome. Well, Alyson, do you have any last words? You want to talk about the challenge for the people listening at home?
You know, watching the new All-Star season on Paramount Plus, I thought it was so cool to see, you know, these are people that like their lives have gone on and they've had children, they've gotten married, they've gotten real jobs, and they've changed so much. There's this one person, Katie, that, you know, she was such a hothead, you know, get into fights. And now she's like the most zen person ever because she's a mom and, you know, she's like it's a different time. But one thing that they all said was that they came back because it was like something they did in their youth that they really loved. And so they were so grateful to have come back and kind of been able to have that experience again and have that joy again. So I just think, as my PSA to everyone, don't lose sight of those little stupid things that you do that bring you joy, okay? Because sometimes you get so into like real life, you know, and like, oh, work, family, responsibility, finance, whatever. Don't lose sight of your little joys, man, because all those people were so glad to have come back, gotten bruised up, and like fell 10 feet into water because that was their joy back in the day. And so don't lose sight of that stuff.
Exactly. Hold on to what you love. Hold on to it, even if it's thrill seeking, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes you need, you know, and this is something that I go through with myself. Like sometimes you need like, you can't be grind all day. Sometimes you need silly, pointless joys. Like for me, like acting, I'm a horrible actor. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm all right at hosting. I'm a good singer. I'm the worst actor on earth. But that's my little joy, to take my acting class. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like, so don't lose sight of those things. And sometimes it's not all about like, how is this gonna benefit me in the long run? No, sometimes you just gotta do it because it's fun and you like it.
Please definitely check out henrystreet.org. That's the donation we shouted out earlier today. Real great stuff going on. You can help out so many people, and also check out how to volunteer. Check out how to participate with that team. There's many actions you can do to help them out, and I think it's a great way to, you know, be a part of a community. Alyson, where can people check you out? Where can people follow you at? Where can we listen to your music? Let's let the people know.
So you can find me on all the social medias as Ali Chainz, ALYCHAINZ, because I'm a gangster. And then you can find my music on all the streaming platforms under my proper name, Alyson, ALYSON, Cadena, CADENA. I have the links. If you follow me on social media, you can get the links right there. I have a song out right now called Red Flags. So I would love if people could check that out. It's basically about how sometimes you make dumb decisions in love because you just vulnerable. You just a dumb bitch and you answered a text you shouldn't have. But I make a lot of stupid decisions, and so I made a song about it. And Yeah, if you check it out, the video should be dropping soon. And then also check out Songs for the Soul podcast. It has its own Instagram that you can follow, Songs for the Soul podcast. Yeah, and the first episode dropped already. The next episode drops on Monday, the 30th. The next episode drops May 30th. Should be a good one.
Awesome, folks. Please check out all those things. Please check out her songs, and definitely check out this podcast. It's such a fun project. I'm really excited to listen to it. I think it's like also just a great way to talk to people. You know, I mean, music's the one communication I think everyone can relate to. Everyone knows music, and everyone can feel with music. So I think it's a great way to go about talking to people with that. As always, folks, you can check us out on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You know where to find us. Same places you can find us, you can find that podcast. You can also find Allie's music too, so definitely check that out there. Alyson, any last words for the people before we go?
Stay safe, stay happy, and thank you guys for having me. I've had such a good time, man. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Also, before we go, folks, don't forget to check out Brooks' new EP. Brooks did our music for the intro and outro music. So don't forget to check out his new EP, Reaper EP. It's so good, really great songs. We gotta shout him out. He did so much work for us, so we're gonna make sure he gets the love out here too. So, shout out Brooks. All right, folks. We'll see you next week, next Friday. New episode then. Till then, peace out.